Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Happy Easter if you celebrate Easter. I'm really excited because my daughter's gonna have her first Easter egg hunt, so I'm really looking forward to celebrating Easter this year. And I am looking forward to also having dinner with my sister and her family as well. So a lot of really fun, exciting things happening this Easter. Today I wanted to just have a quick sit down and chat type of video with you guys, talking about my spiritual practice this past month as well as some of February. I wanted to start off with discussing some of the things that I've been experiencing. So I've noticed that the three primary deities that I work with, which are Hades, Hecate, and Lilith, they all kind of cycle. It'll be like Hades came through last week. I spent the entire week with him. And then it was Hecate the week before that. And then now Lilith has cycled back around. And Lilith, although I'd say I could feel her energy, it was still very present, but it was taking more of a back seat for Hades or even Hecate to come through to talk about certain topics with me, and then it would cycle back to her. I finally spent some good quality time with the Goddess of Love Tarot by Gabrielle Hirschstick. I mentioned in one of my more recent videos I had purchased this and I hadn't really dived too deep into the deck yet. I'm happy to say that that's recently changed, and I'm getting to know this deck. I'm working primarily with Lilith with this deck, and I find that the deck, I'll show you some images. There is nudity in this deck, so if that is an issue for you, you should skip ahead. But this deck, as I've already mentioned, it really likes to talk about sex, desires, but I'm also finding it's excellent for working more energy or more magic towards self-care or self-love. And for me, and I've mentioned this on my channel before, I tend to really struggle with putting myself first and really taking care of myself in the ways that I really should be. And Lilith has really come back around to correct this. And for me, I've noticed there are certain things, like I'll show up for my family in ways that I don't show up for myself. And she's really come through to really correct that. As well as this deck, I find it's really helpful for that. It's really helpful for helping you realize the areas of your life that you need to show up for yourself for. That it's important to fill your cup back up. There were realizations that I had. There are certain behaviors that I would never expose my daughter to, but I would expose myself to it. Or there's certain products that we refuse to expose our children to. There's certain foods that we refuse to expose our children to, but they're okay for us. And I think that's really what Lilith has been teaching this very strongly, this more recent cycle that she's come through. It's been really all about taking care of myself. I used to work out and eat to lose weight, and now it's as an act of self-love. It's an act of self-care. I now nourish my body with appropriate food, and that isn't to say that I don't enjoy foods like pizza or French fries. I partake in those as well. I'm just a lot more balanced about it. Also, I've been spending a lot of time in the sovereign energy or the emperor energy, really experiencing that energy in a different way as well. And I'm having some very interesting experiences and communications from deities with respects to the Emperor energy. And a lot of my experiences, I've realized I work a lot with Lilith in more of like a glamour magic aspect. A lot of my beauty ritual and routine, it's for myself. And that has been really stepping into the sovereign energy, or the Emperor, and really working with that energy in that way is really reclaiming your sexuality, and realizing that it can be for yourself as well. It doesn't have to be to attract somebody. Of course, you can work love magic in that way. You can work your beauty rituals in that way, but it doesn't have to be. It can also be for yourself. So I've been really enjoying that. I've gotten also back into jewelry as well, and I'm using jewelry in that way as well. And I'm really having such a wonderful experience working with these things for myself. Even wearing certain things, wearing certain clothing or undergarments. It's a very enjoyable experience, and I'm enjoying just having these things for myself. It doesn't have to be for somebody else. I have been really loving the Wild Unknown Archetypes. I've been working with this deck. I've been pairing it with the Goddess of Love Tarot as well. And I find that these two decks work really well together. They look really beautiful together. I like to work with a lot of color magic and incorporating a lot of the colors in the cards that I draw for the day into my makeup look as just another way to embody and experience the energy of the day. It'll be to either bring in a certain energy to embody it, or it'll be to combat a certain energy, which it's the only way I can really describe it. And I find that this deck is excellent. It's very helpful for understanding certain archetypes that you're experiencing on your path in that particular day. And it's really helpful for understanding what aspects of your journey you're interacting with as well. I like to use this deck intuitively and with the guidebook. I work with them simultaneously together. The guidebook is very interesting. It's like a watercolor and collage, like Kim Cran's like married the two. It's a very interesting and unique deck in my collection. And I think on the market, there isn't really quite anything like this deck. It's very unique, and it definitely has a very unique space, or it takes a very unique space in your collection. And that's what I love and appreciate it. As I've recently shared on my channel, I had a hot minute with this deck, the Darkwood Tarot. And I worked with it a lot last week while I was working with Hades. And this deck, to me, it has underworld vibes. I feel like this is a journey through your own personal underworld or hell, however you want to look at that. It's excellent for tapping into repressed or subconscious trauma, I guess you could say. But it also is excellent for card a day draws as well. It's great. It can play both roles. It can do the everyday draw, and it can also do the underworld draws, or the more subconscious draws when you want to dive into that subconscious, to do shadow work, to to discuss certain triggers as well that might be coming up for you in your life. To go with the Darkwood Tarot, I have the Seasons of the Witch Samhain Oracle. I have been really enjoying pairing the two decks together. I find that they read really well together. The Seasons of the Witch decks are very interesting to me because I find that typically they don't like playing a more supportive role. They will do it on some occasions, but I do find that this deck really shines well on its own for the most part, at least in my experience. And I found that working with this deck with the Darkwood Tarot has been an interesting experience because it's playing a supportive role, which is quite a surprise. I'm not used I'm not used to these decks working in that way. But I do, like I said, it's working really well with my Darkwood Tarot. And I am enjoying clarifying my pulls for the day with this deck. The guidebook's excellent. And the funny thing is, when I was working with this deck back last Halloween, back around that time of the year, I wasn't really feeling drawn to working with this deck. I didn't really have that great of an experience. Instead, I was reaching for another deck. And my opinion was that maybe I shouldn't have grabbed this deck. I should have grabbed the Maven one because I felt like that had more of the Halloween vibes that I was going for. However, I find this deck has incredible underworld vibes. That's why I think it works so well with the Darkwood Tarot. I'm kind of dying to see how it'll work with some of my other underworld themed decks. I think I'm going to do a video, underworld decks or something along those lines for shadow work, but I have to say I'm having a very unique experience working with this deck. I'm really enjoying using it with the Darkwood Tarot. If you have this deck and you haven't used it with the Darkwood Tarot, I recommend you pull this out and you use the two of them together. It's very interesting how the two decks work so well together. Almost like they have their own conversations. The colors go really well together. They work really well together. I think this is just the perfect pair. I haven't been able to find another pairing with the Darkwood Tarot like this one. I don't know. I reached for the Samhain Oracle one day and I couldn't go back. They just play so well together. So yeah, I have to say, amazing pairing. Also, I couldn't talk more about this gilding. This is so beautiful. I absolutely love the rock pool decks. They're just so luscious, luxurious. The last two items I want to share with you, I have a book and an oracle deck. So I'm sure if you're not new to my channel, you're well aware that I absolutely love this deck. This is the Queen Mab Oracle, or Queen Mab. I call it Queen Mab, but this is an excellent, excellent oracle deck for connecting with Lilith's energy. It is just, this is an essential deck in my practice at the moment. When I pull from this deck, it is to connect with Lilith. It's usually at the end of the day. I just like to pull a card sometimes from this deck to get a message to wrap up my day. As you can see, it has a balance of light and dark aesthetic cards. I'm incredibly drawn to the dark imagery. They just feel, they connect really well with Lilith's energy, I have to admit. They're just beautiful. There are a couple of cards that really line up with how she appears to me in my mind's eye. This is one of them. And as I shared in my Connecting with Lilith video, I keep the other one up on the altar. It's really the one that I identify her with the most. So I will link that video down below if you're interested. This deck has... it has a very strong voice. It connects so well with her energy. This deck teaches a lot about sovereignty. It really encourages you to stand up for yourself, to set boundaries, to show up for yourself in ways that you aren't showing up for yourself. And it holds you to that. It doesn't just talk about that though. It also talks about taking accountability for yourself, taking responsibility for yourself and for your life and the direction that you're heading in. And I appreciate that about this deck. And it's, like I said, it has a place in my practice that nothing else can take the place that that it has in my practice. And that is the Queen Mab Oracle. It is published by Blue Angel. But lastly, I recently picked up this book. It's called Hades, Myth, Magic, and Modern Devotion. I had that really interesting and intimate week where I worked very closely with Hades, and I had a very interesting experience with him, and I've felt called to this book for quite a while, and there's very little books written about him. I have one other book, I believe. I've had it for I'd say a little bit now. I've only read up to page 21 basically, but I am really enjoying it so far. The author is Jamie Wagoner, and she identifies herself as I believe she identifies herself as a pagan, a practicing pagan, but she's devoted a significant amount of her practice to Hades. And I'm really enjoying the book so far. As I've said, I've only read up to page 21. And that's just because I haven't had very much time to read lately. My daughter recently picked up another case of hand, foot, and mouth, and this one was particularly nasty. It was worse. It's a lot worse than her previous case a couple of months back. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.